Hello, I'm Nika Roback with the Nest Egg Builder. Today, a few of our team members are in Florida at a family office conference, including our head matriarch, Peggy. So I am holding down the fort here in California. And we have a very interesting speaker today. I'm going to go ahead, since Peggy knows him more, I will let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit more about himself. So yeah, we're glad to have him. He is real estate. We never want to talk, a real estate lawyer. We always the person we don't necessarily want to hear from, but we always need them. Everyone needs a good real estate lawyer. So I'm very excited to have Jack Lapidus here with us today. Take it away,
Thank
Jack.
you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Lapidus. I'm a real estate and business dispute attorney. I'll give you my quick less than 60-second spiel. I help people who are buying and selling mostly residential real estate, and there's a problem with the transaction. I help real estate professionals who are having problems with their clients or with other real estate agents, such as commission disputes. I handle remodel disputes, whether it be for the homeowner or the contractor. And a lot of my cases involve neighbor disputes, shared trees, shared driveways, shared fences, property line issues, easements, noise complaints, and sometimes even a little bit of violence. I also, a lot of my neighbor cases recently have involved developers or people who have bought properties to flip them. So that's kind of a heavy on my book of cases right now. I also help small businesses that are having issues with contracts and vendors, co-owners and partner disputes, as well as ADA claims for brick and mortar locations and for websites. So again, Jack Lapidus, real estate and business dispute. Today I'm going to talk about basically the overarching thing is how to stay out of litigation when you're involved in real estate. I've been an attorney for 27 years today. Today is the anniversary of my swearing in with the state bar. And I've spent probably 20 of those years focusing on real estate litigation and real estate disputes. And I've learned a lot. I've seen things come across my desk. There's a pattern to things. There are certainly things that are more likely than others. And so I'm going to try and touch on those today. So I'm going to try and share my screen, and I'm going to try and get this PowerPoint to work, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. Do you see one big blue screen that says my name?
Success, yes, we see it.
Okay.
You're all good.
Let's see how this goes. So the first thing I'm going to touch on are the top 7 claims in real estate disputes. So the first thing is misrepresenting property conditions, damage, or value. What this means is basically saying that something is new in the house when it's not, saying it doesn't have a leak when it does, saying that it's worth more than it is or worth less than it is. So misrepresentations are a real big part of real estate litigation. Negligence. Negligence is you did something wrong, but it wasn't on purpose. And it kind of goes back to number 1, which is if you misrepresent the condition of the property and you did that because you failed to investigate it well enough, or you didn't use your skills as either real estate professional or as a experienced real estate investor, and you failed to observe these problems, that could get you into trouble. Then you have breach of non-contractual duties. So this kind of goes really more for real estate professionals, because there are duties that you have in your contract with, like let's say a listing contract, that are spelled out, but there's also non-contractual duties of good faith, duties to not try and rip off your client, duties to try not to rip off anybody, that don't have to be spelled out in a contract in words. They're just implied in the law. Contract violations. This is the other side of that coin. If there's something in the contract that you said you're going to do or not going to do, and you do the opposite. There's a lot of CAR forms for real estate professionals, purchase and sale agreements, and there are duties laid out in there, both for the buyer and seller and for the real estate professionals. And of course, in the listing agreement, the real estate professional has spelled out duties of what they should and shouldn't do in relation to their client. And violations of those duties is a contract violation. Disputes over escrow and down payments. And in almost every industry, one of the things you don't want to do is mess with somebody's money. So I have handled cases where millions of dollars have disappeared from escrow, and where down payments were released too early. And that is a big no-no. So if you are involved in a real estate transaction and you have some control over someone else's money, you need to be very careful with someone else's money. It's not your money until you earn it, until the law says it's yours. Real estate fraud, that kind of also covers a lot of these transactions. I am handling a case now where there were certain real estate professionals who enlisted the assistance of a dirty notary, and they committed fraud and forgery and stole someone's house, recorded documents that were fraudulent, and that's a big no-no, obviously. Damage to property is something that, during escrow and you're the seller, you don't want to go around poking holes in walls. If you have a tenant, you need to be careful with them. If there's some dispute over the transaction, what you don't want to do is cause damage to the property because you're pissed off. Those are things that you can get hit at in litigation. So now we have the best ways to avoid claims regarding real estate transactions. And Peggy was really hitting on me to make sure I don't go too long. So I feel like I'm kind of flying through this. I'd be happy to take questions at the end, just so Peggy can't say, oh, you went long. So first things.
You're good, you're good. You're good.
Okay, thank you. Don't expect immediate success. When I opened my own law office 5.5 years ago, because of the industry I came from, I literally opened my office with 0 clients. And I turned down my first 3 referrals. And when I go back and I think about those 3 referrals, they were not right for me, and I'm happy that I turned them down. And so saying no is a very valuable asset for a real estate professional, a real estate investor, a flipper, anyone who has to make deals where you might have to involve someone else to be a partner or to be a professional or to use your services. And we are in a very weird time when it comes to real estate. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The last 3 years have just been crazy. And there's a lot of people who made a lot of money when interest rates were way down, and there was every sale was over asking, and any Tom, Dick, or Jerry could get in and be a real estate agent, make a lot of money. The good real estate agents are the ones who make money when it's hard. And you want to be one of the good real estate agents. You want to be one of the good investors, and you got to be careful that you're not rushing in or rushing out of things. Make sure you educate whoever you're working with, your clients, your partners, the buyers, the sellers. You don't want to assume that people have the same level of knowledge as you do. And the most simple example of this is abbreviations or buzzwords. I said the CAR forms. A lot of the people here, I assume, know what that means. It's a California Association of Realtors. But I just said that because I knew that, and I set up this little example. There's a lot of buzzwords in the legal industry and in the real estate industry, and you don't want to assume that other people understand the same buzzwords or the same concepts even. You want to get real with people. You want to explain the realities of the market. You don't want to have anyone have unrealistic expectations. It's the, let's say, under promise, over deliver, especially in this kind of real estate market where we're still not quite sure, are things overpriced? Are they underpriced? Is interest rates going to go up? Are they going to go down? You really got to explain the realities, because if you don't, it could be alleged that you misrepresented, which is the number one thing I started with, which is you don't want to misrepresent things. You don't want to misprice the home. This is specific to real estate sales. You, as a real estate professional, you don't want the house to get stale. You don't want your client to get mad. If you're a flipper and you have a partner and you're in charge of getting things done, you know, in a lot of these partnerships, there's the money guy and there's maybe a contractor who does the sweat equity, and you don't want to misprice the home. So you don't want to overestimate, you don't want to underestimate. And that's where the homework comes in, so that you're not committing negligence, you're not misrepresenting things, again, tying back to what I said before. You want to keep the lines of communication open. This is especially important for real estate professionals who have clients. There's no excuse nowadays for your clients to not know what's going on. In my real estate practice, I mean, in my legal practice, something I learned from some real estate agents is my clients see copies of every email. So they're either BCC'd or I send them a copy later of every email that's going on between me and opposing counsel, between me and the mediator or the court. And in that way, my clients know exactly what's going on. If you're a real estate agent, there's no excuse for your clients to not know what's going on with the transaction, because there's so much with the texts and the emails that they should always be kept up to date. And no, there's never too much. If your client tells you, I don't want any more emails, that's perfect. Then it's on them. Tell them to put it in writing, and then you can stop sending them emails. For the real estate professionals who use assistants, you have to be careful because they cannot take your place. They are not licensed. It's not their license that's on the line. It's not their name that's on the contract. And so there are some real estate agents that I have dealt with where they get the client in, they show them the house the first time, or they go to the house for the first time to get the listing, and then the client never sees them again, and all they hear from is the assistants, and that can get you into trouble with the real estate board. That can get you in trouble with lawsuits. If your assistant gives incorrect information, that is on you as a real estate professional, not on them. I think that dual agency should be illegal. Even when you technically dual agency, you can have two different real estate agents from the same office, but I have found there's so many problems with dual agency that it shouldn't be done. And I think that people should avoid it as much as they can. I don't think the benefit of getting that extra little commission is really worth the downside of a dual agency. If you're a listing agent, do a good pre-listing inspection, actually know the property. I think there's another place where I say this, but if you didn't see it yourself, don't write it down. The client tells you, oh, that the place was all repiped 4 years ago. You want to say, I want to see the receipt. You want to, if the client tells you that, oh yeah, we had a leak, but it was repaired, you want to see the receipts, and you want to go and look where the leak was and make sure that it doesn't look like it's still leaking. And you want to know the property. It's like going to a car salesman and having them not know how to explain how to use things in the car to you. You're selling the property, so you should know it well enough. This is a funny one. You got to be careful with the staging. And when we were selling our old house about 17 years ago, I had a discussion with our real estate agent, and she said, oh, I'm going to come over about an hour before the open house. I'm going to bake some cookies because it makes the house smell homey. There's also lighting candles, opening all the windows, things like that. I have literally handled lawsuits involving people who came to an open house and all the windows were open, or there was one candle burning in the bathroom. I didn't handle a cookie baking one, but they said that the homeowners and the agents were trying to cover up some bad smell in the house. It seems ridiculous, but you can open a couple windows, but don't just open the whole place up and make like like it's a windmill in there. Don't bake cookies. Don't try and, don't spray fragrance around. It's one of those weird things that it shouldn't be, but it is. This is where I say, if you haven't seen it in writing, don't advertise it. If the client says it was completely repiped 4 years ago, you want to see the receipts before you put that in the listing. This also goes for square footage. Don't take the homeowner's word on the square footage. Go and look it up somewhere or figure it out. I've had cases where the lawsuit is over square footage and the difference wasn't more than 150, 200 feet. Even though the listing said, it's an estimate or not confirmed, you can still get sued for stuff like that. This is one I get a lot of pushback on, but if you are running an open house as a real estate professional, you have to be super, super careful. And this is going to be the downer part of the presentation. I read more often than I like about people who a single person, usually a woman, unfortunately, has an open house and someone comes to the open house and does them harm. So security has to be the priority for open houses. Mandatory sign-ins with IDs, either on the porch or in the entryway, not all the way in the kitchen. The restrooms are off limits other than to look at. You gotta make sure the medicine cabinets are empty because people will steal drugs. No closed doors other than ones that you lock to keep people out. And you gotta take care of the valuables, but you always wanna have, I didn't put that on here, you almost always wanna have two people manning the open house. One at the front door with the sign-in, and the other person kind of walking through the house, and then have them checking in with each other every few minutes. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And I've just read too many cases about this sort of thing. I actually had one case that involved some violence at an open house.
Ooh.
And then walk away from bad deals. And this goes for real estate professionals, it goes for flippers, this goes for investors. Bad deals rarely turn into good ones. They really just don't. I can't tell you how many cases I've handled where just from the start, the real estate agent says to me, yeah, there was just something wrong with this deal from the beginning. I just thought we could straighten it out, and it just didn't work out. It turns into a lawsuit. So you don't have to close every deal. Sometimes it makes your life a lot better if you just walk away from a bad deal. Same thing with clients. Bad clients rarely turn into good clients. So if you have a bad feeling about a client for whatever reason, move on. Okay. How the economy can help you anticipate the type of claims that are coming. And this is just from my experience. When you have a seller's market, you have buyers who get upset about a year later that they overpaid for the property. And a lot of the cases, they'll say, oh, well, we started a remodel. We found there was mold in the wall, or we found there was a undisclosed water damage or whatever. And what they're really doing is they need to get some money in order to afford this house that they overpaid for. And so disclosures are the key to avoiding these kinds of claims. You want to run sufficient comps to make sure that the person knows that houses in this neighborhood really are selling for this within the last few months. You don't want to go too far back on the comps. And sometimes you need to have a conversation, or you have to put it in writing that you don't recommend that they pay this much for this house, and say, I will do what you want, but I don't think this house is worth what you want to pay for it. Even though I'm going to get a great commission because you're overpaying for this house, I just don't think this is the right deal. And some clients will thank you for it and some will hate you for it. But if you do that, they can't come back and say to you, oh, you let me buy a house that was too expensive. So when you have a buyer's market, you have sellers who get upset that they sell their house for less than what they were worth, even though that's what houses were selling for at the time. And again, this is like a 1 year or 18-month lag between when the market ends and when the lawsuits start coming in. And the sellers will say they feel like they were not well represented, that you let them sell the house for less than it was worth, and that you didn't negotiate hard enough, and all you want to do was close the deal and get your commission because there's you're not getting enough sales, that sort of thing. So again, going back to the comps, making sure that your clients know before they sign on the dotted line that this is how much houses they're selling for now in this area, similar houses. Make sure the comps are thorough, that they're independent. And if you're going to do a broker's opinion versus comps versus just pulling some things from MLS, make sure that's clear, because I've handled lawsuits where people thought they were getting comps, and what they got was just a list of MLS listings for the area and not actual comps and not even a broker's opinion, because there's a big difference between those. So that's all I have as far as the presentation goes. And I'll leave this up for a minute. If you want to go to my website to get more information about me, that's what the QR code is for those of you who know how to use a QR code. And otherwise, I'm happy to take questions. I wasn't able to look at the chat while I was talking, or if there's questions in the chat, maybe you can let me know.
Yeah, I was going to handle that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, usually she likes you to stop the screen share so we can all see each other again for the question and answer part.
I was just going to leave it up for a sec so people could get
Okay.
And
if you ever need it, anybody that we have on, we obviously know who they are. So just ask us if you would like to have their information, and we can provide that for you.
Yeah, I'll put my information in the chat as well.
Huh?
So thank you so much. That was very informative.
Oh, wow.
We appreciate it. There was a couple of chats. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Hi, Jamila.
How are you?
Good. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Huh? Ever what?
Do you have any questions?
Big tongue. Okay, so I forgot which. Are you landscaping or you're
Oh, I guess.
You're
Hold on, I'm trying to find her.
You're doing landscaping or tree trimming or which one?
You open up the participants.
There we go. Sorry, I was just trying to mute her. Thank you. Yes, so there were a couple of questions in the chat, mostly from Doug. If you'd like to answer them yourself, ask them yourself, or would you like me to answer it? Either way, let's see. So first he said, because he's in Texas, I think he wanted to know if you could help him in Texas, or are you just in California?
Yeah, I'm only licensed in California.
Okay. And then another question was, can you explain dual agency a little bit more?
Yeah, so dual agency is essentially where one brokerage handles both sides of the deal. And sometimes you'll have the same agent who's handling both sides of the deal. But in a lot of the situations, what you'll have is you'll have an agent who finds the buyer and the seller, and thinking it will help them to avoid conflicts of interest, they'll bring in another agent from their office and say, okay, I'm handling the seller, you handle the buyer, and then we'll split the commission that way. And that kind of makes the brokerage happy because they get both sides of the deal. And the agent who gets drawn in is like, oh, I didn't have to find the buyer or the seller, and all I have to do is pretend like I'm representing the buyer. And so that's where you end up with dual agency. But the problem you end up with is that the broker, through the agents, has a duty to their client to get the most money on the sale or pay the least amount of money on the purchase. And if they're representing both sides, it's hard to see how you can meet the duty to both of them, and you actually end up doing a disservice to both of them. So that's why I don't like dual agency.
Yeah, understandable. And then the next question that we have is, during an open house, what did you mean by no closed doors? Because what if someone didn't want you to look in their closet or something?
So, okay, what I meant was, and I tried to clear that up, is if there's a door that the homeowner doesn't want anyone to go into, then they, the homeowner, or you, the agent, needs to lock it so that you know that it's locked. Otherwise, no closed door. So no one goes into the bathroom and closes the door. No one goes into one of the bedrooms that's otherwise open and closes the door. If you hear a door close, you know, that one of the agents needs to go and make sure that it's, you know, sorry, we need to keep the doors open. Sorry, the bathrooms aren't open for use. You know, maybe it's good to put a sign up, but the closed doors are basically no visitors closed doors.
Right. For security reasons. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so I assume then what you're saying is people have gone into a bedroom, closed the door, and then hidden out in there, so that when everybody else leaves, now they're in a position to assault the agent. Or
That's one of the reasons. Other reasons is theft. Other reasons are, you know, people go in and commit, you know, cause damage. You know, there's all kinds of reasons, all kinds of good reasons why you want all the doors to be open.
got you. Appreciate it. Yeah, good points.
So does anyone else have any questions? You're welcome to come off mute and ask them.
David just put
Oh,
one
David
in
had
chat.
one.
Are you mostly counsel for brokers? I currently represent everybody: buyers, sellers, listing agents, buyers agents, the brokers, brokerages, home inspectors, remodelers, contractors, surveyors. I represent everyone who could possibly be involved in the purchase and sale of real estate.
This is David. Thank you for that. I'm an investor. Do you represent investors, not necessarily with real estate agents, but it sounds like, you know, you're privy to a lot of that. But other types of investment types of real estate purchases and you know, land contracts and things like that, as far as that's concerned.
I mean, I do represent investors who are basically either purchasers or sellers. I mean, there's kind of 2 or 3 parts of my real estate practice. There's when everything's already hit the fan and someone got sued and they need someone to represent them and they don't have insurance for whatever reason to represent them. So I do litigation. But I also handle situations at the very beginning where a transaction is just starting out and they're hitting a few speed bumps and they need someone to come in and smooth things out. And though I come in for one side or the other, let's say I come in for the buyer, I explain to my client, and I also feel that my mandate is to get the deal done, not to beat down the other side, but to, you know, get it to a point where the deal gets done. Because that's what, in the end, that's what everyone wants.
Right.
And so that's where I focus on the disputes as opposed to the litigation.
Do you have
Does that answer your
experience?
question?
Yeah, in a way. Do you handle like probates and those special types of sales, things like that?
I do not handle probate. I have a number of attorney friends who are very good at that I refer to. I know people who handle just probate. I know people who do probate litigation, which is a whole different ball of wax. I am in networking groups with other lawyers, and I have access to a lot of different types of lawyers. And I also have friends who do very much the same thing that I do, and we refer to each other because sometimes the case is too big, the case is too small. I'm busy, he's busy. And so there's a lot of referring that goes back and forth regarding the kind of stuff even that I handle.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm thinking about being a buyer, like buying a probate property or a tax lien kind of property, things like that, if need be.
Right. I know people can help you with that sort of thing.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm not so much of a transaction shepherd as some of these other lawyers do, who shepherd transactions. I'm more of a troubleshooter when there's already kind of a transaction in place and something is going wrong, and I can advise people as to how to move forward so that either the deal can close or we can avoid litigation, that sort of thing.
So the real estate investor's problem solver.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. They say
Well,
all of
another
real
thing,
estate is problem solving. So now you're the real estate investor's problem solver.
well, another problem that comes up a lot with real estate investing, especially with people who go in and do a lot of construction, is there's a lot of parts of LA, especially West LA, where when the properties were built, the property lines were merely suggestions as to where the fences should be. And I have a lot of cases involving developers who come in, tear down everything, do a survey, and find that the existing fence is 3 feet over in the wrong direction. And so they want to move it, but that's now going to be in the middle of the neighbor's driveway. And so that's going to be an issue. And, I have a big focus on trying to resolve these kinds of neighbor disputes where the developers come in and want to upturn the whole neighborhood.
Mm. Yeah, that's trying to take half of someone's driveway. I mean, if their house is right on the other side, what are they supposed to do? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems like a neighborly thing. I mean, I understand making money, but geez, if you're going to literally take away someone's driveway and they have no other alternative, I mean, it's kind of like, seriously, that's not nice or
right. Well, especially if the
ethical.
property's been there since the 20s or 30s or 40s, the law is not on the side of the developer who wants to take away someone's driveway. And there's ways to do it the right way, and there's ways to do it the wrong way. And unfortunately, I've been able to talk developers into doing it the right way, and other times I've had to have a judge tell them that we're going to do it the right way.
Right. Yeah, I don't even see how someone could push that. But, yeah. So does anyone else have any questions?
Sure, I have one more. So Jack,
Doug, we have plenty of time.
do you work primarily with residential investors, or do you do anything on the commercial side, like maybe reviewing PPMs for passive investors in commercial deals or anything like that?
Yeah, I do primarily deal with residential properties, and again, my focus is on litigation and disputes as opposed to just your generic what we call a transactional attorney, reviewing documents and seeing if they're okay and that sort of thing. I do that, but in the context of a dispute or litigation, and it's kind of a fine hair to split. I know what I mean, and sometimes it's hard for me to explain to people what I mean. But if you have an issue that comes up, feel free to reach out to me, and we can discuss it, and I can see whether or not it falls within my very cloudy area of kinds of contracts that I'm able to review.
Gotcha. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Well, you handle that makes me think of that. Do you handle, say that there is a passive investor that the GP or the active investor stops paying, or somehow they're in trouble and they didn't meet their deadline for whenever they were owed money?
Yeah, for me, that in my
sense?
mind, that falls under what I handle as a business dispute. That's when you have
Yes.
a active investor, a passive investor, and hopefully some agreement between them, they have a business arrangement. And so I handle disputes between co-owners and partners and that sort of thing. This business happens to be related to property, but it's still a business dispute as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So yeah, I absolutely handle that kind of matter.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? There's a lot of new faces today. And I am very curious if no one else has a question. I'd like to know the Hubert, can you explain what you were? I went and clicked on that Otter AI, and it's literally saying, writing every word I say. It's translating. I'm like, ah. Hubert? I don't know, maybe he's gone. Anyway, he set up, it's pretty interesting that if you click way in the back, it has all of the notes of everything that's been said. I don't know if you can save that. That's why I wanted him to come on. I've never seen that before, and I've never, I haven't been here and met Hubert yet. So just thought he could tell us a little bit about that if he would come on. But maybe he's not right at his desk at this moment. So,
Hey, this is David. I have another question again.
okay.
Ernie.
Yeah.
Tell me some of your experiences with investors, with brokers, broker disputes, and so forth. Just curious what you've seen on that. Where you represented the investor part against the broker.
David, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
This is going in and out a bit.
Yeah. Question is your experience with investors, representing a buyer investor against a broker with some sort of an dispute in that way.
Representing a buyer investor against a broker. Well, I mean, it really depends. Like, was it the broker for the buyers or the sellers? Is it a residential commercial property?
Yeah, it's either
what were
one.
the communications?
Yeah, some sort of issues, maybe your experience of, maybe you've had some in the past, you representing, or I hire you as my attorney, I'm an investor, and there's some issues that came across with the broker, an agent, whatever. I'm just curious what you've experienced with that.
I apologize. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
I think he just
give me
wants
a little more
examples of something that might have come
Yeah,
up.
some examples of representation from an investor buyer buying a property from a real estate agent or a listed property.
Okay, so well, I mean, it's the things that I listed in my presentation: misrepresentation, negligence, overpricing, underpricing, failure to communicate. You know, it could be hidden self-dealing, breaches of fiduciary duty, messing around with the money, you know, the deposit or the escrow money, things like that. Is that what you were looking for?
Just asking what your experiences with in that scenario. I guess maybe disclosure kind of situations. I don't know, things like that on the property.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the broker, if the agent goes through and doesn't disclose something that should be disclosed, that's a problem. If the agent doesn't ask the seller the right questions, assuming they're the listing agent, you know, you can't purposely be ignorant of something. You know, as an experienced real estate professional, there's certain questions you should ask and certain things you should observe and disclose. One of the things I say all the time is you can't get sued for something you disclose. And, you know, one of the things I tell real estate agents all the time is if your client comes to you, your seller comes to you and says, should I disclose? You should stop them right there and say, yes. Whatever it is, if you even think you should disclose it, disclose it. Now, oh, well, but then they might not buy it. And I said, well, the worst thing is that they buy it, then they find out what it is, and they sue you for it. That's even worse. And you're always going to find a buyer eventually. And a lot of these things, you know, you either have to disclose it, or if you disclose it's not that big of a deal. If you're thinking about it, whether you should disclose it, then you should disclose it. And the same thing for the agent. If the agent sees something and goes, oh, I see something that's kind of odd here, I'm going to talk to my client about it, and maybe we need to have a professional come in and look at it, but I'm certainly going to put it on the disclosure. because it's caught my attention. You can't be sued for something you disclosed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Good points. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Marcy? You always have good questions.
No, I don't really have a question, but Jack, you made it so clear in your descriptions, in your answers, that I don't think anybody could misconstrue what you've already told us. That's the clearest presentation I think I've ever heard about what should be done and what shouldn't be done in terms of you buying and selling a home. That's all I have to say.
No, thank you. That was it. That was my intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate your presentation. I think you did a great job. Maybe if you can just leave whatever contact information you have, so that if any of us do need to get in touch with you. I do business with some companies in Florida in California, for example. So it could come that I might need your services. I hope that I don't, because that means I got a problem.
Right.
But if so, I appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Yeah, I put my contact information in the chat. So if anyone needs to get a hold of me.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Giselle, do you have anything, since you're a new agent, real estate agent?
You know what? I'm happy that you mentioned that, because hello. Well, thank you for the presentation, Jack. I was very I was taking some notes over here, because I was like, I know those open houses, liabilities all around sometimes, and sometimes even like if somebody trips, like, I gotta be very careful. But I know that right now, there's a lot of new changes coming in terms of, I guess, like marketing for sellers. Because I know online, I don't know if you're too familiar how, how some realtors, they go to these vacant homes to promote, the home itself. And then they kind of, it seems like if it's their own listing. So I know there's some laws that are like, not laws, but I know there's some regulations that are being implemented to like avoid any, I guess, confusion for the seller. Can you speak on anything about that?
Well,
if you may?
I mean, not specifically on that, but one of the things I can speak to is, and again, I represented real estate agents and brokerages almost exclusively for 10 years at one of my firms. And if you come up with an idea as a real estate professional that you think is unique, will give you an advantage, no one else has thought about this kind of thing, find some trusted people, maybe not in the real estate industry, but some trusted people, some family, some friends, and run it by them. I can almost guarantee you 7 times out of 10, it's shady what you came up with, even if you don't realize it's shady. And shady gets you into trouble. And there are some people who don't care about being shady. There's some people who don't care about breaking the law or bending the rules, or, like I said, they find the clients and they hand them off to their assistants who have no real estate training at all. They just know how to fill out forms, and they're perfectly happy with that because they're going to make money. Believe me, there's people in the legal industry who are the same way. All they care about is making money. They don't care about the clients. They don't care about breaking rules, and they're fine paying a fine here or there. That doesn't mean, there's no innovation that's possible, but you just got to be careful with it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again for the presentation. Very enlightening. It made me it started making me think about all these different scenarios I've had in my open house so far, and I'm just like, thank goodness, nothing has, evolved into something greater, right? But I think ultimately, my biggest takeaway was just to be, it's always a great idea to be cautious, in any.
Yeah, there's an open house 2 doors down from us. They just built 2 new houses there. One of them sold right away, and the other one's been sitting there. And they had an open house, and they had one woman in there. And my wife, my adult daughter, and I went to the open house. There was no sign-in sheet. The woman's in the open concept kitchen towards the back of the house, so you can see the pool. And three of us walk in. My wife and my daughter walk into the kitchen and start talking with the agent. I went through the whole house before she ever knew I was there. I just to test it, just to see. I went upstairs, had the whole upstairs to myself. She did not know who I was. She didn't know if I walked in with my wife and my daughter. And when I came down, she actually had a little bit of an attitude, so I didn't really have that talk with her. Like sometimes I'll go to these things. I don't do it on purpose. If I go to an open house and I'll just do it and I'll go, you really should have 2 people here and a little more security. And I tell them why. But it was shocking. It's shocking. I could still be hiding in a closet in that house right now. It was 2 days ago.
I know. Sometimes it's a little unpredictable. So I guess my only question that came to mind, so when you're saying sign in, so would I ask for their ID? Like, oh, can I see your ID to confirm like who you actually are? Would that be like the best practice you could say, Jack?
Well,
What's your take?
I would just say, first of all, I would, maybe have a sign at the door. We apologize for the inconvenience, but due to security concerns, everyone has to sign in and show ID. Not you don't have to sell to every person, and not every person who walks through the door. Like we live 2 doors down. I'm not buying that house, but I'm still walking in the house, right? But I understand the idea. Oh my God, everyone who walks in this house, is a potential client. But people who aren't going to give you their name aren't going to be your client. They're not going to call you back later, right? So you're kind of getting a read on their psyche before you even bother trying to get them as a client. So if you have a sign on the door, or if it's in the open house announcement or whatever, that need you to sign in and show ID, and someone comes in and gives you grief and says, I'm sorry, sir, I'm more than happy to show you the house, but I'm sorry, it's my broker's rule that I have to get everyone to sign in and I got to match it to an ID. Moving on.
Yeah. I like that. I like that approach. It's a best practice, and I'll definitely implement that. Thank you. Thanks again.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Yeah, and the whole door knocking for investors too, I think that would seem like it would be something that would make common sense, but I would never go door knocking by myself on people's houses. Like anybody can drag you in their house, and as a woman, I just wouldn't go by myself for sure.
I don't know if I'd go by myself, and I'm 6'3", 250 pounds.
Right. Yeah, true. I guess anything can happen.
I'm shorter on Zoom.
Yes. Well, you're tall in the back there.
Yeah, that's 5.5 year younger me.
Right. I want to get one of those and like have it to where you can put it in front for your Zooms, like right.
Yeah.
I'm here. I had to say, just more recently, is that applies to a lot of businesses. I mean, if you've got a storefront and you're uncomfortable about somebody who has come in, there's probably steps you need to take to usher them out. In my business, which is getting loans for small businesses, if they don't want to fill in and send you the proper information that you're asking for, a credit report or an application, I mean, we're done. Can't do business with them. So I think a lot of what you said applies to a lot of different situations, even outside of real estate or some other areas of real estate that you don't cover. Agree?
Right. Yeah. I mean, safety is a lot of common sense, and it applies to a lot of different areas. Like I said, it's just common sense. It's also like, when you go on vacation and you let your guard down, there's still some common sense you need to follow when you're on vacation. You know, you don't leave your wallet lying out by the pool and you walk away or whatever.
You
Gotta be
don't
careful
announce
those
on
things.
Facebook the exact dates and where you're going.
Right. You know, it's funny when we go on vacation, I will put my Facebook on private and I will post things to Facebook, but privately. And then when I get home from the trip, I'll make them all public. So you don't see them in real time, but they still show up on my Facebook timeline for my friends and family and such. Not so much public as my friends.
I just
Right.
discovered on my calendar, I use the Google Calendar. And little did I know that anything on my calendar apparently could be seen by anybody else who was able to get access to it. So I just read
What?
the options and put it on, yeah, and I put it on private. I mean, if it's Peggy's video, if it's Peggy's show, I can leave that public, but if it's private, my personal appointments, nobody can get into it. If I put that notification and I indicate that it's private.
Well, I hope my calendar's private. I mean, I think my calendar's private.
Well, double check it. Do you use a Google Calendar?
I do, but and I put everything in there, but only if you have it clicked to share a calendar. Who
Yeah,
would be
only if you have it set that way. And
Yeah.
if you do have it set that way, you can set individual things, individual
Yes.
events as private. But the better
Okay, yeah, I
practice
don't
is
have
probably
shared.
to set your calendar to private or not shared. And then if you want to share something specific, share that specific thing.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Right, I don't
Yeah.
have shared calendars. That's why I was like, what is she talking about? Like, yeah. Well, I mean, we are coming to the top of the hour. Thanks for some of the new, well, I'd like to say, I haven't seen Gary. I don't know if he wanted to say hello. Gary Chan. It's okay if you don't want to come on, but anyway, so if anyone, do you have any other questions? We do thank you for coming today. At least I'm going to turn off the recording.